The morning show here on Arise News. How disillusioned are Nigerians with their elected leaders and the political class in general? How far has the Nigerian variant of democracy gone to improve the lives and the well-being of the people? Are Nigerians taking advantage of the right channels to call their leaders to account? Are there adequate channels for government-citizen engagement? These are some of the questions which must now lead us to our next conversation around a new political movement, the National Consultative Forum, NCF, which has been in the public domain for a while now. But in recent weeks, the movement has become bolder with a message that seeks to reawaken the consciousness of Nigerians to the need for an unpolluted democratic space and service-oriented leadership on the part of elected representatives. For all of that, we're now being joined by Professor Pat Utomi, Co-Convener of the National Consultative Forum, a professor of political economy and a management expert. Professor Utomi is also the founder of the Center for Values in Leadership, CVL. Good morning, Professor Utomi. Thank you for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning. Such a pleasure to be here.
Good to see you, Prof.
Thank you.
Well, quickly, the National Consultative Forum. What is the agenda? Some people say that it's just a think tank. Some people go further and say, well, this is an attempt to start the process of another political party, and it's all about 2023 and the larger Nigerian equation. But you are a co-convener. For the benefit of our viewers, it would be nice if you could tell us what the priorities of the forum are.
Well, thank you so very much. Clearly, this is a national redemption movement, a national redemption initiative. Why is this so? It is so because, sadly for us, maybe nobody intended it, we have come to a very awkward pass in our national history, where if we don't do something extraordinary, there won't be a Nigeria around in a few years. Now, many countries in the course of their history come to this kind of unfortunate pass. And if you carry on routinely, you would not solve major problems. Somebody I had plenty of regard for before he passed, and still have lots of regard for, Stephen R. Covey, in talking about human effectiveness, essentially says that from time to time, we've got to leave routine and go and sharpen the sword. The concept of the National Consultative Front is really about sharpening the sword to regenerate our country. If you look at where we are as a country, clearly, if nothing extraordinary is done, the only destination we can arrive at is Somalia. It is very obvious. And I would like to give you, from economics, where we are economically, from our value system, from our institutional situation, why Nigeria is in a huge national crisis. Let's take the basic economics of our existence. The essence of modern society is to organize life such that people can improve the quality of their living fairly seamlessly through creating jobs, more opportunities for people to renew themselves. If you look at the Nigerian situation and look at the level of employment of our young people, you will see that we have an extraordinarily a large population out of work. If we can just take that as a basis for problems, you know that we are going to have serious problems. We've got a situation where we can either do the right things and reap a huge demographic dividend from our youth bulge, or if we don't do the right thing, what we will see happening to us is that this mass youth that we've not done enough for just revolts against the established order, and Somalia is here. So let's move to the crisis of values in Nigeria. I have been enormously passionate about this subject for years. Values shape human progress. But look how far down we have come in terms of our values. We are where we are when most of our countrymen are so upset that there's violence everywhere. And what are our leaders doing? They're living it down. They are taking the national budget and just playing with it. We can't even get the national budget to be used as an instrument for economic strategy. And let's not just concentrate on the public sector, it's across the board. There's a collapse of culture in Nigeria. Look Look at banking. How much banking, real banking, is going on in Nigeria? People want to wear fancy ties, and they are doing pretty little to add to wealth creation in Nigeria and Nigerian banking system. If this banking order continues, we won't have an economy. Just bring in refined petrol, take it out, do this, do that. You don't build an economy like that. I feel so sorry for the central bank governor. Poor chap has to become development bank, become commercial bank, be central bank. It's impossible to do all of that. And this is a function of the collapse of culture that has taken away from even the private economic sector focus on what really matters. This vainglory, everybody, vanity, vanity, driving people rather than wealth creation, my place in history, how I can make a difference to the lives of the next generation. Then you take our institutions. Our institutions are in near collapse. I'm glad that we heard Tony Blair say to the Nigerian Bar Association exactly what I was saying almost at the time he was speaking. There's a crisis of leadership across the board, top down in Nigeria. So when you have a country in this kind of national crisis, you need a national redemption movement. And this is why many Nigerians who have been sitting on the sidelines saying, leave politicians, have found out that it's not possible to leave politicians. It is impossible, quote me, impossible to change Nigeria. I heard you in the segment before about internal democracy in political parties. It does not exist. As you said very correctly, the political parties are special purpose vehicles owned by some business people, political entrepreneurs, for advancing their personal interests. That's what political parties are. If APC governors can actually gather at a meeting and say, look, it was so bad that the APC has a duty to refund the money its own members paid to purchase the forms for running, and yet the party has not bothered to do that. You can see how bad the collapse of culture is in Nigeria. That conscience has even fled from what the political parties represent. It doesn't work. So the system cannot throw up leaders that can redeem our country. So we need to reform all of these things. The essence of the NCF, which is non-partisan at this stage, is essentially it's a citizenship movement to raise national consciousness of citizens across the board to say, look, we can't go on like this. And we say no more. We want a democracy, or we don't have a democracy. This is not a democracy, that's for sure. This is not a democracy. I spent many years in school studying this stuff. You cannot call what goes on in Nigeria a democracy. It's not. It is a coup by other means, by people who are civilians, who use the instrumentality of political parties to prevent participation, encourage state capture, and use the state and substitute private goals for public goals. And it's hurting Nigeria. It's prevented Nigeria, as Tony Blair said, from, instead of being a first world country by today, the bottom of the pit in the third world. Nigerians have the talents. Nigeria has the resources to become what much smaller countries who were behind us have become. But the challenge is a failure of leadership, which is a function of the failure of the political party system. So the NCF starts out essentially to try and formally organize people. This is not talk shop anymore. And how is the NCF trying to do is just the nature of our structure, the way we're ruling it out. It is a citizen movement. Any citizen, wherever you are in Nigeria today, and you think that, no, this is not working, just go to the NCF website, register, begin to form a cell of between 12 to 20 people, and begin to have meetings, weekly meetings, almost the way Rotary meets. We have an order of a meeting, and the purpose is to get citizens engaged in Nigeria and be the ones that determine where their country is going, not a group of entrepreneurs gathering to use the state for their own purpose. And at your meeting, the first thing that you do when you arrive at a meeting, we have the order of meeting, and I can actually walk through it here for you. First thing you do, somebody, opening prayer is the second stanza of the national anthem. We all read it. We have to reinforce this every week to know why we're here. Who we are. There's a statement of who we are as NCF. It will be read. We'll remind ourselves that it's about sacrificial service for the advance of the common good of all, for the advance of our country. Then, our values. our values are such that if anybody from this movement goes into public office and he comes out of it 1 kobo richer, he's going to go to jail. Public service is about sacrificial giving of self for the good of others, for seeking immortality, for being remembered, not for getting rich. Want to get rich? Go and be a businessman. Make all the money you want to make. That's what South Korea did to its businessmen when it changed the ways that it sought for public office to be sought. And they are reaping the benefits today. Those people who were trying to get into politics before now find that since their interest is money, they can make money. Nobody will love you people who make money. Make it. But don't come and use the state to line up your pockets and say you have made money. Create things, build up ideas, and go forward. Then, after our values, we're going to a discussion of one chosen national issue. This week, for example, it can be padding in the National Assembly. The group will discuss padding and what must be done to change it. They will summarize their views, which will be sent to a central processing system. Then you take one local issue. If you are meeting in Maryland, what is the problem at the Maryland roundabout? What can we do about it? Ideas about it, you discuss it. Then after that, you go to the issue of what we want to see in government in Nigeria. What are the things we see wrong? You discuss it for a few minutes, and then you discuss how do we create more cells. These 20 of us who have met today, 6 of us must, within the next 1 week, create 6 new cells of between 12 and 20 people to begin to do what we are doing. Every week we are suggesting an issue and all that. And after that, you have a closing song, a song of patriotism. And for me, this song is Nigeria Will Rise Up Again. And God will heal our land. Nigeria will rise up again. So this is an essence of what we will do in every meeting of NCF cells across the country. Our idea is to roll out millions of these cells and let Nigerians take their country back.
Okay. This all looks very beautiful, but the practicability and sustainability of it would perhaps be some of the questions people would ask you. But Prof, just a moment ago, you said the NCF is non-partisan at the moment. That was your word.
Yes, absolutely.
So at what point does this morph into a political party? Is that the plan? And let me also ask you, because this is, you said it's a citizens' movement aimed at reforming the political arena. But a closer look at the membership of your group shows quite a few individuals who have been in the corridors of power and those who have also tried to get into political office, including yourself.
Is that supposed to be a crime?
No.
Okay, thank God for that.
Also did not get that power. So my question really is, my question, Prof,
yes,
is how is your group different from other existing groups and the political parties who have promised so much but have, yet to meet that desire for Nigerians?
A trial will convince you. It is a typical Nigerian way of preventing things from happening. You people, you have something. You were looking to be appointed. You didn't get appointed. Those who were appointed, are they not Nigerians? So that is absolute nonsense in my view. It is not how we should be dealing with issues. It's a matter of what are your ideas? How do you want to change this order? What are practical efforts that you are making? If you don't have any clear ideas, you don't have any, then you say, you guys are just babbling and blabbing. But if you can make a constructive sense for how to do things alternatively. Look, Winston Churchill is considered perhaps the greatest, was voted the greatest Briton of the 20th century. Winston Churchill kept failing and fudgling. If people on TV kept saying to him, oh, this is your effort, is it not about people who have failed before? We missed the point. We need to educate conversation. Democracy is about rational public conversation, as Jürgen Habermas argues. The public sphere is about that kind of engagement. Until we can have rational public conversation, devoid of cheap sentiments, we will not be able to get to solve our country's problem. Why do you accuse people of, oh, you wanted to get before? Those who got it, what did they do right? We know that there has been no free, fair, democratic election in Nigeria since 1999. I can show you proof of it. So why do you accuse people who were fenced out by a system because they didn't get it? That's their duty as citizens, to come out there and keep going. When a baby is learning to walk, the baby will fall. look right, look left. Nobody's looking. Gets up again and begins to go. I am not afraid of falling and failing. The world is where it is because many people who fell refuse to get up. Okay. So what we should say is get up and go so you can change it.
Okay, Prof, great idea, but you're not reinventing the wheel. We've seen this in the course of many nations' history.
Absolutely.
Happen. I mean, if you read through Thomas Piketty's book on Capital in the 21st Century, he talked a lot about the rentier system.
Absolutely.
In France. And that's what you are saying is happening in Nigeria now, state capture. My first question is, how would you reverse state capture? Secondly, you said people should be jailed, you know, if they go to government and they come out one bit richer without a judicial process.
Of course, with a judicial process.
Okay.
Certainly.
Okay. And third question, Prof.
Yes.
Will the NCF support an Igbo presidency when it comes to it?
Let's start with that. I am not a spokesperson for what the NCF will do in terms of where the presidency will come from. As an individual, I would support an Igbo presidency. So that's my personal perspective, because it is about equity. You see, the book Representative Bureaucracy, written in 1948 by Thomas Kingsley, was one of the forerunners of the whole idea of affirmative action. That people, when they feel excluded from a system, when they are not represented in how that system works, become alienated from it, policy implementation becomes ineffective, and the system eventually suffers a depreciation of legitimacy. And if Nigeria is going to move forward, it's better give every member of the country a sense of belonging. And that is what the idea of an Igbo presidency represents. So let's move forward. But that's not my personal point of view. That's not the NCF position. We have not had the time to dig into those kinds of issues yet. We're dealing with the more fundamental issues. You mentioned Thomas Piketty, great guy. I don't always agree with him because, as they say, Thomas Piketty is the new Marx. But he has done a humongous job of work in identifying the state of capital in the world today. Both in his book, Capital and Inequality, and his tome, Capital. Thomas Piketty makes the point that there has been no bigger concentration, no bigger availability of capital in the world as it is today as a result of globalization. But the point is that the way that the concentration has taken place in a few hands makes it unequal. Makes it, look, if you look at international trade, what's Africa's participation in international trade? It's insignificant almost. But if we create the kind of coalition we're trying to build, the kind of ideological base of the NCF is a coalition between the productive. And the coalition of the productive is taking the rural farmers who produce the agri that will go into processing, taking the artisans who essentially process, taking the middle class who organize processing and are professionals, and taking the new entrepreneurs, I talk about people's capitalism, converting bright young men and women into entrepreneurs in an SME scheme, which, by the way, we're going to launch this year at SNCF. We're working with some diaspora people to set up training programs, what we call graduate executive education in skills. So the graduate with a degree in whatever area goes into a vocational training program, 6 months to 1 year, develops a skill, gets some entrepreneurship training, and forms a small gang. When the guy who's going to fix your plumbing arrives in his fancy car because he's worked hard and is creating wealth, that's the kind of society we want to build. So this coalition, I'm an original Nepu kind of guy, Aminu Kanu kind of a person, but we then build not just the artisan class like Nepu was doing, but we'll build a coalition of commitment between the intellectuals who will guide the path, the artisans, the farmers, and this sense of their shared interest becomes the propulsion for Nigeria's rise as a country, becomes the essence of turning Nigeria from a sharing culture that we now have to a production economy. And this is what will save Nigeria, because the alternative is national collapse.
Well, Prof, two quick issues. One, an average Nigerian is likely to say, well, this kind of citizen movement, redemption movement is not exactly new, even on our shores. We've had, there's a movement called Revolution Now, which in terms of its express objective wants to do the same thing. We've had in the past to Save Nigeria movement, people saying, look, we need to rescue this country. We've had at a point national intervention movement that called itself the Third Force. But in terms of the big issues, many of those movements did not really deliver in terms of concrete outcomes. So someone who is now hearing National Consultative Forum would like to know the position of the NCF on certain specific issues. What are the expected outcomes? Is it electoral integrity? Is it a new constitution? Is it federalism? Is it recommendations as to a new order for Nigeria? Because there must be measurable expectations. Then secondly, an average Nigerian listening to you saying that we are dealing with the issue of state collapse, state capture, they are likely to ask and say, wasn't Professor Utomi part of the leaders of the APC, the people who put the APC together? So what happened? That somewhere down the line, he's now saying this is not a democracy, an arrangement that he helped to put together. And now he's saying that the ruling party is presiding over state capture and state collapse. I think you may need to clarify that.
Ruby, have you not failed before? I have failed before. I'm not ashamed to say I failed. I want to try again and get it right. You know? Yes. You said, you named a number of things. And you said, I said all of the above. You see, the truth of the matter is that nation building is not a straight line. And you were going to have staccato movements. We got together, we thought the trajectory of our country was not going right. And we worked so hard to build the APC to get it right. But we failed. I'm a member of the APC still, by the way. The movement that we are building, as I keep saying, for now is non-partisan. If the people at some point decide that they want a party out of it, that's their decision. For now, it is one that incorporates PDP, APC, any Nigerian of goodwill who wants their country to be better. Now, I am not apologetic about the fact that I made efforts to make the APC work like parties should work, but it didn't. People effectively prevented that from happening. I've talked even on this show about how in the early days, I knew the values the party needed to have. I knew the knowledge that every elected member needed to have. I went to the chairman of a party, Chief John Odige Oyegu, and I said to him, these and these and these are what we should do to make our party work and truly become a party of change. We must implement this now. He said to me, no money. I said, we don't need, yes, people can pay for those things, but given the fact that we are a national redemption initiative, we can find people to do it for free. I gave him a list of people. Bismarck Rewani, this person, that person, they're my friends. I'll bring all of them free of charge. We will give our time and just train all these people who are going to go into public office. This is your national secretariat. There are all these big empty rooms. All they have to do is transport themselves to Abuja. We will bring ourselves from wherever we are, Lagos mainly, with our own money. And we will sit there, teach them from morning till night the values, the knowledge of economic systems, of political systems, and all of those. One day, on my third visit to argue this with Chief Oyegu, while we were still discussing it, what's his name from the Voice of Nigeria, Okechukwu, walked in. And I said to Chief Oyegu, I said, if I, as one of those people that helped build this party, have a different view on how my party should do something, what's the process? How can I express it? It doesn't exist. And Okechukwu said, he's absolutely correct. There isn't a system of internal democracy in this party. It does not exist. Well, Chief Oyegu smiled a lot about it. And so after trying, I gave up. I'm not going to force myself on the system. At least my conscience is clear that I tried. And I accepted my failure and began to look at them. I have experienced it. I'm not talking. I walked my talk, and I know what the outcome was. And I think perhaps we should do something different. We should make something that will work. You talked about Save Nigeria movement. I was part of it. When it came to the annulment in June 12, I was part of it. I was on the front lines. I survived several assassination attempts on account of it. That is the duty of a citizen, to have a view, a picture of his country that will be better for his children and grandchildren than it has been for him. Sadly, we live in a country in which we had a better life than our children are having. That is a tragedy for any people. And we must not allow that to continue. And this is the purpose of the NCF.
So how do you want to go about it, really? Because I talked about the practicability of this. You also mentioned that there has been no free, fair, or credible election since 1999.
Yes.
And you have also said that, you know, this is going to morph into a political party at some point.
I have not said that exactly.
Oh, so what exactly is it? You said it's non-partisan at the moment?
Yes. Let me, in fact, there's a part of Ruben's question that I did not finish answering that deals with this matter. When he talks about what reforms we're trying, our starting point is the reforms. We must get these reforms. If we don't get comprehensive reforms of the electoral process, for example, it's pointless participating because you will not win. If we don't ensure that money does not buy a political party, it is pointless. In the US, there are limits to how much you can contribute to a political party. There are limits to what you can do in many instances. We don't have those working in Nigeria. We must prevent parties from becoming personal properties of people. If we don't have the systems put in place, we must have a pattern for seeking nomination in any party. You see, we started out pretending that these are internal affairs of political parties, we should not interfere. The judiciary got to a point when it could not but begin to interfere, and now it's over-interfering, but the whole thing is just one big mucky mess. So we need laws that completely redefine what a political party is, the things that political parties must do. That is one set of reforms. Electoral process reforms, political party reforms, structure of the country reforms, those are particularly important. And we then need to begin to say to people, if you go through these processes, the people's will come up. Unless we can do that, it's pointless becoming a political party because you just go and run and not get anywhere. You can't win. These elections the system is rigged to prevent you from winning. So our first stop is the reforms. How do we restructure the country? How do we restructure the polity? How do we restructure the mindset? The most important restructuring is the mindset. Because right now, the Nigerian people are somehow lost to what is acceptable. This collapse of culture. Look at young people. For example, as this show is going on, young people are going to be on Twitter. Say, don't mind him. They didn't give him that contract. Don't mind. Thoughtlessness has dominated our system because our minds have been reprogrammed. The vanity of now. Every time I pick up my phone, all these people, this news, that news, punch something. All I see is this beautiful girl, this girl's bomb. What kind of vain society is this? Can't we create something positive and make progress like others? So a collapse of culture has taken place. We need to restructure the minds of our people. It is central to getting Nigeria right. And this is part of what we're going at. That's why we say, if we get into this, we're a party now, it becomes a partisan thing. Don't mind them, this is because they didn't get that. Right now, we're citizens. When we then change our society, then anybody who wants to be a party can be a party. Within those same guidelines, they can now throw up people who are true leaders who can make our country make progress.
All right. So I've got a couple of questions for you. Number one will be, is it a Southeast presidency or it has to be Igbo-speaking extraction? Because there's also always that convolution back and forth about that. That's the first question.
Okay.
And second question, sir, how can we make our development as a point of freedom in this state of insecurity we have? What's the vision of NCF in the insecurity? I mean, someone like Amartya Sen wrote so much about that. How can we, what's your position on this, and how can we make development to, to bring about those freedom from the insecurity we feel? And the first question on the Igbo presidency or Southeast presidency.
Okay. Well, again, I think these are some of the things that cause unnecessary distractions in Nigeria. Well, first of all, I do not see these things in terms of this place, that place, in terms of participation that makes people feel a sense of belonging, as I stated, is very important. What is Southeast? What is Igbo? Now, if Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe had had his view back in the mid-70s, which was my own position, that another state be created that will incorporate the Anioma areas of Delta with Ogbaru, Onitsha. Where would you call that state? Is it Southeast or Southwest? That is the real issue. When we say, oh, Northern Presidency, we don't say Northwest Presidency, Northeast Presidency. We say Northern Presidency. So in my view, when we say presidency going that direction, we mean an Igbo presidency. That is the only logical way to think of this. Then moving on to the issue of security. Amartya Sen was absolutely correct. There can be no progress without real freedom. There can be no progress without peace. I think that the person who captures it in a way that I like particularly, and I was trying to write a book to mark this year, I think the 75th anniversary of his book, The Road to Serfdom.
Friedrich Hayek.
Friedrich von Hayek. Friedrich von Hayek. The Road to Serfdom. Freedom is central to production. And production is key to human progress. And if we don't have peace, if we don't have a sense of freedom, we cannot produce and we cannot make progress. So I agree completely with you. We need to make the current situation a national emergency situation. And we will not do it by just giving soldiers more guns. We will do it by actually looking at why people are poor and how that poverty leads them to becoming cannon fodder in fighting other people's wars. And if people are making progress, they will not have time to go and carry a gun. But if you are not making progress, look, I'll tell you something I told my friend Nasser El-Rufai 25, 30 years ago. I think Ruben was even present that day when I was saying this to him. I said to him, look, Nasser, this 9-year-old Al-Majiri can sleep under the tree, can go around begging. You pick up the food and you eat, you sleep that day. In a few years, he'll be 40 years old. He won't be able to beg anymore. He will do something to survive as a human being. And the easiest thing to do is pick up a gun on behalf of any mad person who wants to create any problem. We used to have violence based on some ideas in Nigeria. Now it's just nihilists. People who are just angry with society, killing anybody they can kill. It was not rocket science. I could tell you that this would happen 30 years ago. I knew it would happen. I even founded a group to fight against its happening. It was called NUTRA, Nigerians United to Resist Anarchy. This followed Robert Kaplan's book, The Coming Anarchy, in which he predicted West Africa's descent into anarchy and looked at the cleavages that would bring it about. Economic cleavage, of course, religious cleavages, ethnic cleavages. And Kaplan was prophetic enough to take a city in Nigeria called Jos and note that Jos essentially was a crucible for the coming together of these cleavages and could be the basis of how Nigeria goes down into anarchy. And I went as a citizen. I try to be proactive about any threat I see. I called the chief of security, who was my friend, by the way, the SSS director at the time. And I said, look, Keyus, you got to read this book written by Robert Kaplan. And I sent him a copy of the book. In fact, the national security advisor at the time also got the book, General Aliu Mohammed. 2 years after I gave them the books, Jos erupted, the beginning of the Jos riots that we are struggling with till today. So there's no rocket science because we refuse to think and apply ourselves, because we can see these things ahead. I could tell you 30 years ago that Nigeria would be where it is today if certain things were not done, and those things were not done, and we are where we are. I'm seeing where it will be in 15, 20 years. And I'm saying I won't stop talking. I will organize and work with like-minded people to prevent Nigeria from getting where I know it will be 15 years from now if we don't do these things we're doing. This is why we have the NCF.
Well, Prof, we're talking about citizen movement, we're talking about redemption movement. You've been part of this process, or if you like, struggle, for more than 30 years. Every society needs a critical mass that can move it forward. But when you look into the future and you look around, and you look at the list of the members of the NCF in terms of the demographics, I can't find enough young people as part of that critical mass. Where is that future generation that can take up this struggle? Because I don't imagine that in another 30 years, you will still be, talking about redeeming Nigeria.
I probably would have been gone.
What do we do to build that critical mass among this generation that seems to be sold on a different kind of heroism? Hush puppy, Woodbury, materialism, Big Brother Niger. Maybe to save Nigeria, we have to start at that level.
It's very important, but to be fair to that generation, because, Ruben, part of the problem are you guys in the media. You see, understandably, news value looks at known names. So you're going to have me here, whereas there are 10,000 of those guys who think like me, who don't have access, who won't get into your studio. So there are many of them out there, much more than we tend to realize. Because I have made it my business over many years to try and work with young people to get them to develop new ethos, new leadership values, which is the reason I founded the Center for Values in Leadership. I know them a lot better. I know that this country is gifted with very smart young men and women who just feel frustrated that the generation before them did not make their shoulders available for them to stand on so they can see tomorrow more clearly. And so part of it, blame is ours. Our generation did not do enough for its young. So we should begin by punishing ourselves for our failure to do right. Now, if we deal with ourselves on that ground, then we move to those who are there, who really are this way. Oh yes, there are those who are sold on the vanity of now, but there are also many good people. I keep talking about, there are many young lecturers in the universities. One of my last shows on television, I mentioned by name one of them. Young lecturer at BUK in Kano sought me out, called me, and said, look, the redemption of this country is going to come from organizing the undergraduates. If we just organize only the undergraduates, they have a basis for reception of ideas if you begin to go to them. And so we're saying to those kinds of young lecturers, it's your business to help organize those students. I know what we did as 19-year-olds. Maybe, and again, taking the blame to our generation. I think I've on another program with you here, Ruben, I talked about a conversation I had with General Alani Akinrinade about 3 or so years ago. And General Akinrinade was saying to me, young people are busy complaining that 39-year-olds are becoming president in France. Italy is moving in this way. Austria is coming that way. This was before the Danes brought these young women to take over the place. He says most of them have come out of the student movement like you, Pat. But those that came after you have not had the chance of that student movement because we destroyed nuns, and the student movement in this country. General Akinrinade was absolutely correct. We saw those movements as threats. I had graduated when Ali Mongo took place, but they were taking refuge in my apartment in Surulere because Ganifa Emi's office was just down the street from me. I hid Chudi Wazirike and co. I think Chudi's in the house, or I don't know if he's still in the house, Professor Wazirike. So I know how the movement went back. I saw government begin the destruction of nuns and whatever it was. These people don't even remember the Okewos. They don't remember the Olori Mageges. And those men who gave the prime of their youth in struggle for the fatherland. It is from that base that Europe is recruiting its brilliant new leaders. So, the blame is partly ours, and we must stop politicians from fooling around, taking men who have refused to graduate 10 years after and calling them student union leaders and giving them Range Rovers on campuses to cause confusion and allow young people, 18-year-olds. I was a 19-year-old when I gained national attention in this country as a student leader. And I didn't gain it from just blabbing. I gained it engaging on serious national issue of the day, which was foreign policy. So I think that we should take our blame, for part of why the generation is this way and work our way to helping them. Having said all of this, there's a huge movement. Part of this, the cells we're talking about, are going to be majorly young people. And the people who work on them, maybe I'll get you to speak to one of those chaps in BUK and ABU working with me, and one or two of them in Oka and elsewhere. But we're building that, and we need to change that generation. If we don't get that generation to move in the right direction, all we're doing is a waste of time. Continuity is critical for the future of our country to get where it should go. Indeed.
Prof, there are those who say for Nigeria to attain true federalism, fiscal responsibility and institutional reforms, we must take a critical look at the Constitution. It must be people-centric beyond the preamble of we the people. However, the Northern Elders Forum just recently faulted the moves by the Senate to review the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution as amended. It says, and I quote, the move is a repetitive initiative of the Senate, a predictable waste of time, resources, and energy of the country, and should not be supported by Nigerians. What does your citizens' movement have to say to this? Do you agree? Should the Constitution be as critical as, the young generation you're talking about? Where do we start?
Yeah. Well, these issues are very nuanced. I'm not in the position at this point to know what the real motivation of the position is. And I can talk to Hakeem Baba Ahmed, who's a friend, and find out what the real motivation is. It could be that their motivation is, don't distract us. There are critical issues because this country has a way of finding distractions when there are serious issues on ground. And if that is their motivation, that is quite fine. If it is saying that this constitution is okay, then that I disagree with completely. We actually, what has happened is that everybody has found something wrong with the constitution. But if they then come to power, they see that they can abuse things with that same constitution, so they stop believing in it. We need a process. What must come first before any move is a reform of this system. What is the best way to reform it? Will the National Assembly play another game? Would it be like the a constitutional conference? We have so many, we had consultations, whatever, under Jonathan, the Provision 2014 report. We had under General Obasanjo, the one that Bishop Kuka and Co. were on. So we keep having these things, and they just prove a veritable form of distraction. Nigeria must say we're ready to reform the system. And how we do it could be National Assembly. Part of the work of the NCF has also been to create an elders forum. These elders include Dr. Umai Lazo, Dr. Kunle Olajide, Alaji Balarabe Musa, and all of them. And part of what this elders forum is doing a review of the Nigerian constitution. And they have even said, and I'm quoting Dr. Umai Lazo, that they are willing, 100 of them, sign this petition, go to the National Assembly, sit down there, and refuse to leave until they start work on it. So there are different approaches to these things, but we can forge the consensus that is required. When Hakeem Baba Ahmed and Professor Iya Abubakar and Co., if they realize that there's a serious process, maybe they will say, don't bother with it. Maybe they are bothered that people are trying to distract people from the real thing. But if they are saying that what we have is okay, then they are absolutely, absolutely, absolutely wrong. We don't have a people's constitution, and the people must be the center of the constitution of this country.
Well, Prof, sorry to butt in here. I just got a message now from somebody you know very well, Dr. Donyo Okupe. And I would like to read the message he says I should convey to you. He says, Ruben, please tell Pat that this is not the first passionate move he has made in this utopian direction. The real fundamental problem in Nigeria is not even restructuring. It is ill-defined elitist structure and failure of this loose class to have a consensus. Without a national elitist consensus, there will never be a true nation. I take full responsibility for this statement. Signed, Donyi Okupe.
Donyi is just speaking grammar. He's just speaking grammar because he has sat many days in my house talking about these things. So he should stop speaking grammar and face the business, you know. So I agree with him on the fundamental tenet that there's a need for elite consensus. And that's really very, very important to moving forward. But the truth of the matter is that the elite become so self-centered that when they get to a position like he doing to make a difference, they speak another grammar. So we want people who are committed to the service of the people. We're tired of people who just speak grammar for the sake of what position they'll be in.
All right, Prof. Yeah, I don't want to speak grammar, but I just want to ask about the future. The future has changed. It's not going to be what we know today. I think it was Jeremy Rifkin that wrote a book recently. It says capitalism without capital. And that's the trend of the future, digital innovations and things like that. We even have a ministry for it in Nigeria. How can Nigeria be part of this?
Yeah. Before we go to capitalism without capital, I'll go to saving capitalism from the capitalists. The first and ever-present danger to the advance of capitalist order is today's dominant capitalists. Two gentlemen from University of Chicago Graduate School of Business, Raghuram Rajan and Luigi Zingales. Of course, you know Rajan went on to become chief economist of the IMF and governor of the Reserve Bank of India, argue very stoutly in saving capitalism from the capitalists about society's capacity to renew itself through the institutional arrangements that make it easy for a small guy with a great idea to topple a great company. We cannot make progress unless we create that. Because you see, and my friend Aliko has to forgive me, it's not him personally, until we can bring down Aliko and throw up Musa and Moji and Ada, this economy is not going to make progress. Because a dominant capitalist class seeks to defend itself, but what it built on is yesterday. And yesterday may be not valuable to tomorrow where we're going, which is what leads us into Rifkin's thesis. The new economy that we're going into is going to be based on the minds of people. We've entered the fourth industrial revolution. Beginning of this year, technically, we entered it. Even though, you know, I mean, we talk about artificial intelligence like something new, but the discipline of artificial intelligence has been around. It became a formal discipline in 1956. But formally, we've entered the fourth industrial revolution. The capital of the age is the mind. And the essence to the capital of the age is education. What are we investing in the education of our young people? That is what will determine our future. And I want to urge these governors, I want to urge the Nigerian people, a situation where the National Assembly will spend more money to redesign its roof than it will spend in the whole country on education. It's a tragedy. It is a destruction of the future. Our society must not accept that. And this is why I argue that the future does not need, I don't know how many hundred people are running around National Assembly. What we need is a unicameral citizen legislature, a legislature of part-time people who are brilliant scientists, who are doctors, who are farmers, who are artisans, who take off some time from their work to come together to make laws that will facilitate opening up the space, rather than people who are sitting in Abuja, hustling from one minister's office to another. This oversight business is just sickening. Well, we need a balance of power. We need a separation of powers. We don't need to waste time the way we are doing.
Well, Prof, for the benefit of our viewers who may like to join the National Consultative Forum, one question they will ask will be, how do they join? Is there a secretariat that they can go to? Is there a website where they can sign up? How can they become members of the cell that you talked about earlier on?
Yes, absolutely. There's a secretariat in Abuja. It's located in Utako, number 40, Inuawada at the Crescent. there is in Lagos, but there is a website. That's more important. There's an existing one, but we know that that one doesn't have the capacity to do all the things. So one is being built, a new one is being built. It will be up by next week, I believe. But even the one that exists now, you can go to it, you register. Once you get registered and get back to you, feel free to immediately form your own cell and just begin to communicate back. And the cell will be registered, the number given to that cell, and you should multiply. As soon as you form a cell, within a few weeks, a couple of you should go and form new cells and get Nigerians engaged, involved in saving their country.
It is true that it's a gathering of like-minded people. However, I don't think that there are movements like this that do not require some sort of funding, to grease the wheels of what you're doing. I mean, meetings, correspondence. I don't use the word bankroll, but how's this being funded?
You must be one of those who bring the godfathers into politics. You.
So, Prof, where's the funding coming from? How do you sustain this?
Who's bankrolling you, Prof?
Who's bankrolling me? Well, Ruben, I assure you that I will not spit expletives at you.
Nigeria.
Okay. We are being bankrolled by ourselves.
Okay.
We levy ourselves. You know, by the way, this is not without antecedent. In 1993, between 93 and I guess 95, 97, 98, pardon my saying it myself, but the most effective fight against military rule. Thank God, Aremoshegun Oshoba said that. Forget NADECO. We built NADECO. We, concerned professionals. Our ambassador to NADECO, the bank chairman today, Aswe Godalo, they were the ones who organized when General Adebayo brought the old men together. Ukiwe was head of the group that became NADECO at that meeting, and we sent in our people to go and organize them. When the Abacha regime published what they call the list of CIA agents in the country, which was every civil society organization in Nigeria, concerned professionals was not there because they realized that we were not getting a dime from anybody. We were levying ourselves, paying from our pockets for the redemption of our country. There are not many people who are going to be around who can claim, like I claim, that public service, public life for me has made me poorer and poorer and poorer, and I'm proud of it. Never made a dime from all my struggles in this country. Instead, whatever I have made from God-given talent, I have put into it. And so we are funding ourselves, and we like to go by the method of now, which is crowdfunding. Members will eventually pay something. It might be small, but all that small, when we're enough of us, will be enough to do the needful. We don't need to buy people. We need to speak to their consciences. And we know that there are resources like you here who know that the people are hurting, who will make the platform available for the message, which is the massage, to reach the people.
All right, thank you so much for that, Prof. At least I'm happy you didn't say it was a stupid question, but it's fine. Prof, I want to talk about the people, the lower people in society, the bottom billion, like Paul Collier calls them.
Yes.
I want to talk about how we can increasingly bring them out of poverty. Prof, anytime I go to povertyclock.io, my heart bleeds and I see the numbers. One person's just gone into poverty in Nigeria, the other person just gone into poverty. How do we, bring them out? I mean, the last Nobel Prize for Economics was awarded on the work some people did, I think Bergel of India, on poverty itself, how to understand poverty and how to bring people out. It's a critical matter. What's the way on this?
Unless we understand how to bring people out of poverty, there's no reason for politics. Politics is really about that. It is not an accident that when Americans run for office, president particularly, the big question is, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Because it's about the welfare of the people. The business of poverty unfortunately, is one that we have enough capacity to overcome. But because of poor policy choices, we have driven our people further and further down into poverty. This was the heart of the Tony Blair comment to the Bar Association. Part of our strategy as NCF is to suggest that if you build this people's capitalism, that is a producing economy, our people will stop being poor because they will be producing and exchanging. What has happened is that for the last 40 years, a lazy elite, depending on a gift given by God to the ground, which is extracted by foreigners in enclave economies. Because one of the tragedies of Nigeria's oil industry is that it is an economy detached from the rest of the Nigerian economy. The only effect it has is the money that goes to the central bank or NNPC through the central bank, and then politicians and contractors share in one form or the other. But if we were a producing economy, if you look at the fundamental difference between the politics of now and the politics of the 50s, which was very well captured by Robert Melson and Howard Wolpe in their work on modernization in Nigeria, when you talk about competitive communalism. The political leaders were people engaged in trying to create more wealth and more progress for their people. And they were competing on ethnic nationality basis on who would most create that wealth for their people. Today, the emphasis is on sharing. How much are we getting when they go to that FAC account meeting in Abuja? And because of it, we are not getting people out of poverty. We are increasing the number of people in poverty. We're just increasing, as we're increasing it, we're increasing the number of cars that politicians can buy. The real truth is that you can only produce your way out. Look at history. If you look at the economies of Europe, the ones that built around revenues, and of course, since you're on that track, and you know many of these people, Thomas Sowell's book on politics and economics, wealth, poverty, politics and poverty, speaks to that brilliantly. The Spains of this world were making so much more money 200-300 years ago, but their elite were as irresponsible as Nigeria's elite of today. They were consuming it. National Assembly people, they share the money, they move it to London, buy a house. The Dutch, those small countries, the low countries, which if you follow traditional economics should not have developed, were investing in their young men and women, in their capacity to produce, and they began to outproduce Spain. And so when the source of the revenues shrunk, Spain became a poor country. And those countries that, if you follow traditional economics of labor, land, and capital, should not have grown, the low countries, became very wealthy countries. Nigeria has to move away from the path of emphasizing consumption of an elite, sharing money that does not belong to them, to emphasizing production, like Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Michael Okpara, and Madu Bello did, in creating the industrial estates, in building up all of this. I think one of my favorite examples, I give that all the time, from out of this Melton and Wolpe competitive communalism idea. Look, industrial parks or industrial estates. Colonial Nigeria did not modernize, did not industrialize Nigeria at all. Yes. And if you read Pius Okibo, that Nigerian public accounts, and how, you know, the details of all of that is there. When the Nigerian political leaders took over with self-government, the question was, how do we move forward? Chief Obafemi Awolowo was the first off the gun, creating the Ikeja industrial estate, which is why if you drive down Obakran, you will see that Udwa Investments has a stake in almost all those companies on Obakran. He then went around inviting companies to set up factories. That's how Nigeria began industrializing. And once Okpara saw what he was doing, Okpara jumped on a plane to go and do the same. And he would not just do to match Awolowo, he was going to outdo Awolowo. And so he started Aba and Port Harcourt, Trans-Amadi industrial estates simultaneously. If you read Pius, what's his name escaping me? First permanent secretary of finance in Eastern region, Oscar's father,
Jerome
Udoji.
Jerome Udoji.
Yeah, see, I'm getting old. Sometimes I forget. Chief Jerome Udoji, in his book, Under Three Masters, there's a particular photograph I love of him and Okpara getting off the aeroplane in Amsterdam, going in search of what Awolowo found. And in doing that, they were able to boast 3, 4, 5 years later that Eastern region was the fastest growing economy in the world if you excise it from Nigeria. Ahmadu Bello responded appropriately with Kakuri, the Kakuri industrial estate. He looked at the factor endowment of northern Nigeria, cotton, invited the Hong Kong Chinese, and Kaduna became the hub of the textile industry in this region of the world. What has happened to those who have come after them? Share the gala, share the booze.
Well, Prof, 2 quick questions. One is from one of our viewers. This gentleman sent this question by Twitter. His name is Oshosonya Adeniyi. And he says, at about 1990, can you please ask the Prof if there are any plans for people in the diaspora? I live in the UK. So how do people in the diaspora, how do they key in into this Save Nigeria, Redeem Nigeria movement? And then secondly, I'd like to have your take on the drama that has been playing out in Edo State, as Edo State prepares for gubernatorial election on 19th of September. The role of godfathers, the threat of violence, the back and forth, the reversal of what we had in 2016 with the main candidates just switching sides and playing the same game all over again.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Our friend from the UK is absolutely on the mark. We are fully incorporating the diaspora. You are free to start a cell yourself where you live. In fact, earlier I was talking about our graduate skills program, graduate vocational education program, which we are launching, I think on October 1, I believe, as part of the NCF program. And it's being driven by the diaspora. There are a number of Nigerians in the diaspora who are major players in skills development in the UK. They teach in this, and they brought in some British friends of theirs. And they're going to run, beginning first on by remotely, that is virtual, a training program where we'll train graduates in certain construction-related skills. These graduates will give them locally entrepreneurship education. That's part of the NCF initiative to diversify the base of the Nigerian economy. And as they finish those programs and all of that, we're trying to develop a comprehensive crowd-funded system from which they will draw capital to start businesses based on the skills that they have developed. And this is driven by the diaspora significantly. So they're fully welcome to register, to create their skills, their cells, and to show how they can add value to this system of transforming Nigeria. And they will get, our structure is twofold. The cells, which are geographic, and the concentric circles, the wheels, based on core of our goals. And those who are at the core of the goals and those who are more marginal having these wings, and they intersect, creates a new kind of organizational structure that skills, intellect, values, key into geography to show direction. And we very much have the diaspora clearly in mind in the developing of this structure. We do expect that those who can will key in. And then, Ruby, what was the other one? Edo, yes. My heart bleeds, really. I'm not joking, my heart bleeds. Whenever I think of Edo, my heart really bleeds. One of the things that Edo says to me really is the tragedy of values in Nigeria. When somebody says that, you see, don't worry, what I said before was politics. It shows the absence of character in the Nigerian political class. Character is everything. I'll quote you from the motto of a school, which I believe was taken from Billy Graham, and something he said. The school, government secondary school, where is work hard, play hard. When wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When health is lost, something is lost. When character is lost, all is lost. And you can tell very easily, my favorite example of when wealth is lost, nothing is lost. There's a gentleman, I used to use a video to teach about 20 odd years ago. The gentleman had just gone bankrupt for the third time or so. And he was coming out of the subway in New York and saw a homeless person. He says, my goodness, that guy is worth much more than me. At the very least, he's worth zero. I am worth far less than zero. 3 years later, the man was back a billionaire. Today, he's the president of the United States of America. His name is Donald J. Trump. So when wealth is lost, nothing is lost. What's money? You can make it over again. When health is lost, as Steve Jobs found out, something is lost. It doesn't matter how much money you have. When you've lost your health, you've lost it. When character is lost, you don't exist. You are finished. And when you say that something you said yesterday doesn't mean anything, it's politics. It brings me to a frightening thing in Nigeria. Politics is catch-all for everything indecent. Boy, don't be politics. Waiting. If your word cannot be your bond, you are worse than dead. That's all I can say.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Pat Utomi, for joining us today on The Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.
Great pleasure.